Hello. Yet again, this semester, I am experiencing issues with recording conditions. I plan to go to the park to record this, but it's getting cloudy and it looks like it just might start to rain. So here I am again in a corner without trees in the background, which I was hoping to make look a little more cheerful in some of the, especially gloomy garage recordings. Anyway, hello. If this turns out to be the final version, it may be a practice version if the cloud's clear and I go to the park. But I have intentionally decided to use a rather rustic looking outline here to emphasize that what we're talking about is the content and not the technical quality of the production. And today I would like to talk a little bit about the 7 different ways of thinking and my example on narcissism. But I also again want to encourage everybody to get started with the course the best you're able the first couple weeks. Don't feel as if you need to understand all of this. If you have quotes from all the 4 sources for the first 2 weeks that I've asked you to use, that's fantastic. If you're still figuring out your own topic this week and next week and what these are all about, that's fine too. Don't feel as if you have to understand everything all at once. It took me quite a while to decide to set up the course this way, to write all this out, to do my example. And even though I'm going to try to explain it in a couple minutes, which I think you'll be able to do by the end of the semester as well with your own project. And I do hope it provides an example for you that's useful for you throughout the course. Don't feel as if you need to understand your own topic and what you're doing this semester in the same way. Yes, and one of the things I would like you to consider throughout the semester is as you're researching a topic from several different perspectives, how looking at a topic from these different perspectives can be useful. So in the future, whatever assignment you have, whatever kind of project you're looking at, you may not use a whole lot of metaphysics or art, depending on your subject matter. Ethics and logic will probably be involved, if not every single time, significantly, if not every single time in an overt way, in a significant way, in an underlying way behind your methodology and your so-called construct validity. And most of us will either have more natural science or social science focus in our work. A lot of us will end up on one of these in many cases. So, on narcissism, I used to think of narcissism and extroversion as almost the same thing. Used a book with students called Quiet by Susan Cain a few years ago, in which I began to think of things a little bit differently and began to think of introversion as and extroversion as, or the qualities of them as being skills that we can all develop and take advantage of. And so that book and thinking about the ethics of narcissism has helped me think about it as in a little bit different way. Specifically that it is good to be a certain amount of selfish enough to take care of ourselves, to take care of our families, and that it's not that introversion and extroversion are one side good and one side bad, but that both sides have their strengths and their challenges, and something that we should all consider in our own lives. And the logic of things, as I've got there very simply, the limits, that I came up to a point in looking at narcissism where logic and science came to explanatory limits for me, and I'll get into that a little bit more down below. But that logic and natural science went a certain degree. Natural science, how much, talks about, wow, it is getting cold and windy now. It was so nice just a couple minutes ago. Natural science talks about the so-called incidence, somewhere around 3 per 100, supposedly, for depending on who you ask and or what source you look into. And for those who are interested, the pages on these ways of thinking include links to what many people call the DSM-4, or the newer UN version of psychological disorders, which, if you're interested, can refer to for more natural science on that. But the politics of it, I will summarize this way. If it is the case that some human beings are born that way, what is society going to do about it? I had been taught in philosophy and even religion when I was young that we make decisions based on free will and face the consequences of those decisions, good or bad, based on the logic and ethics of our choices and the practicality, perhaps, of their fitness to the natural world. But if it is the case that some people are supposedly born bad, what the movie called bad seeds, then what's society going to do with them? Leave them out to roam and wreak havoc? Lock them up forever? Kill them? That is part of what I meant about the limits. If this is a natural phenomenon, what are we going to do about it? And these, my reliable standbys, felt like they weren't giving me a good enough answer. One of the documents I read about spying and espionage talked about how psychopaths was the term they were using there, can be useful assassins, and I began to think of them, as far as natural science goes, as a kind of, perhaps, a bit of shark DNA in the species, which might be helpful for adaptation and survival overall. But again, that leaves us as a society with some problems for those individuals. And one of the perhaps strangest concepts here in the list, how do we know that what we think we know is really real? We've many times experienced things like optical illusions. We've often, most of us, changed our mind about a variety of things over life. And epistemology is the ways of verifying confidence in belief, is the way I'll define it right now. And the notes that in metaphysics that refer to Dante's Inferno and Milton's Paradise Lost for the interested can look into how some of these ideas helped me think about some of the limits that these ways of thinking had reached in different ways. And that also led me to thinking about the role of villains in literature. As difficult a problem as real psychopaths might be in society, they make pretty good literary characters. And we are looking at the character Richard III this semester in Shakespeare, which many people consider a villain. And it's interesting to me how he talks about his own ways of thinking and what he thinks about himself throughout the play. Again, if all of this sounds to you like examples of what you're already planning for your topic this semester and how you plan to go about it week by week through the whole course, that's fantastic. If you haven't yet settled on a topic, if much of this still sounds rather vague, that's all fine. Again, what I want to encourage people to do For the first couple weeks, for the very first week, find a couple quotes from Sachs that you can relate to somehow. After that, start thinking about a topic that you might want to look into throughout the semester, probably something related to your major, your plans for your careers, or a hobby, something you're already interested in. Let's wind this one up right now. I'm actually getting cold and need to go back inside. Take care, everybody. Feel free to send any questions, concerns, or requests.